Welcome to Café Con Leche with
Liz?
and Lil. Hi, everybody.
Hola.
Welcome. Oh my goodness, it has been a couple weeks since we recorded because of everything happening since the death of George Floyd. Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, it's crazy times, but this is how change happens, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And speaking for Lillian and myself, we just want our Black and brown brothers and sisters to know that we stand with you, we support you, we are here with you, and we are your allies.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever we can do, however we can to help.
Always and forever. Yes, absolutely. We love you. Whew. It's been, I mean, it's been a crazy couple of weeks of like getting out there and protesting and having hard conversations, like it was interesting. My mom, I feel like, is a person who is always, she wants to know, she wants to ask questions, she doesn't always understand, right? So she's one of those people who's just like, I just don't understand why they're destroying things, and I was like, Mom, first of all, that is not all of the protesters destroying things. And it was hard for her to understand, like, when nobody's been listening, when you've tried everything, when you've been peaceful, all you have left is, okay, fine, then I'm going to start breaking things. And, it was hard for her to understand, I think, until I told her, Mom, buildings don't bleed. Buildings don't cry. Buildings don't die. And you can rebuild them, And so this is what they've got. So you just have to go, you know what, I would never break something like that. You think I would never break something like that because I feel, but after 400 years, you're lucky they don't light the whole place on fire.
And that's the other thing. I know that every city is going through this, every city in the country. And how many countries was it?
I don't remember. It was a lot, though.
14? I don't know. I forget the number. But even in New York, actually, that was one of the statements that Cuomo made, was about people coming in from outside of the city, So, and then that's the other thing, especially talking with my mother, and my family about, destruction and things like that that's happening, looting, that oftentimes it's not even the protesters, so that's also the hard thing. I know, of course, the news will report X, Y, and Z and, about, horrible stories, but there's been so much peace and there have been so many peaceful protests, which I think that's the most beautiful thing, the power of speech, the power of conversation. And I think that we're a part of that, spreading that conversation every way we can, within our families, with the community, with our viewers. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the change is that comes from here.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
We are long, long overdue. We're going to do this thing.
Yeah.
Woo! All right. So today we have two wonderful guests, some of our favorite people who we love, who we've gotten to work with doing Beautiful in the Heights with them before, Henry Gainza and Claudia Mulet, and we are going to be talking to them in 2 seconds. Are you ready to do this, Mama?
Let's do it.
All right. Whoop, whoop. Hey, welcome to Café Con Leche, you guys.
Café Con Leche.
Hey. Everybody did their assignment. Everybody's got their coffee. Good job. So the first question, before we get into anything else, is the question that we ask every time. Henry knows. How do you like your café? Do you like it hot? Do you like it quick? Do you like it easy, like that cousin nobody talks about, but everybody talks about behind her back?
How do you like it, Claudia?
Oh my God, everybody that knows me knows that I love coffee. I cannot live without it. I can't. I'm not a very American coffee. I'm more of like a Cuban version of it. But I love coffee. So anyway, so for my sake, what I like is to wake up. That's one of the things that I love the most. Waking up in the morning, go to my kitchen with my eyes closed like this. Go to my cafetera. I'm so sorry, it's so loud because the guy in the garden decided to cut the plants today.
Okay.
Out there, and I'm like, okay, I have a meeting. Great. So I love just to go to the kitchen, set up my cafetera, get the azuquita en el cosito, en el vasito, and then wait, like I stare at the coffee maker like this, waiting for the first and when it comes, I'm like, oh, okay. And then I shake the cafecito, make my cafe with like a Cuban version of it, sit down with my coffee, and I literally put the half of the coffee maker in my glass. So it will be like this much of like, if this is my coffee, my mug, this is like how much coffee, Cuban coffee I put in. And I just press it. But I drink the whole coffee maker, the whole coffee maker. The entire thing. During the morning, I'm like in my phone doing things, or I'm just like staring at something or writing something, blah, 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 and I go back. That's my favorite like, feeling. Just going back and see that there's still left, and you're like, oh, a little more, and you put more, and then you come back to the couch, just like that's the best feeling in the morning.
Yeah,
I love it. How about you, Henry?
Well, I guess it's well, first of all, I like it strong, light, and sweet.
Ooh, okay.
Delicious. But definitely strong. But what's interesting, before this pandemic and quarantine, my coffee ritual in New York specifically was like my first introduction into the day, specifically when we're unemployed, right? And we're trying to find a purpose within our days, meaning, we're all actors. So we go from having all the jobs to having none of the jobs. It's like my morning thing. Like I get dressed to go have coffee, to go, and I usually will get my coffee at my favorite little place. And what's interesting is that it kind of changes. I go through phases of like, oh, I love the brew at this place, I'm going to go get my coffee there every day. And a lot of times I make it kind of like a morning walk too. So I pick up my coffee, and then I go for like an hour walk, and like,
I love that.
Where it's kind of like exercise and kind of clearing my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not exercising like a high impact or anything, but it's, I'm walking like 4 or 5 miles, so it's better than nothing.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's more than most people do. Like that's more than most people do accidentally walking, because the average person who has like a desk job walks maybe 3 miles in a day. So if you're starting off with 4, hey now.
Yeah. And I have to say, one thing that actually both of you just pointed out that I don't know if we've actually talked about before is what coffee is to us culturally. There are so many people I know who coffee is not, it's just, I'm tired, I need some coffee right now, or I've got to get a paper done, I need some coffee right now. But I feel like, especially for Latinos, and also, I grew up around a lot of Italians in the Bronx, a lot of Sicilians specifically, espresso cafe is something huge for them as well. It's like a ritual, it's a family thing, you know what I mean? Like that was huge for me. Also getting up in the morning, and like my grandfather was the only person, like other people made the coffee too, but like not like him, you know what I mean? When everybody was waiting with their cups for like, just like when Claudia, for our viewers,
I know
Claudia would make cafecito during the show when we were with her, and people were scrambling with the cups, so much so that the theater wound up buying us another, oh my God, cafetera, a whole nother one, so that we could have enough, because even the crew was getting into it. But it's such a funny thing to me when I meet people who like, coffee is not that for them, espresso is not that for them. I people think I'm crazy when, and again, the Italian thing, I grew up, it was common to have espresso with dessert before bed. Which is weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, we have coffee
a little bit
at any time. I mean, in my home, like it'll be like, you'll have company come over. They came over, I don't know, they decided like last minute to come over around 9 o'clock, and you're hanging out and you've been talking, and around midnight, they're like, you want a cafecito? In another household, that would be like coffee at this time. In a Cuban household, or at least in this Cuban household, it is coffee. It goes when, at any time, whatever time.
It's a whole day thing. It's a whole day thing.
That is not the way I was raised. Because my mom doesn't drink coffee. She's one of those freaks of nature Puerto Ricans who does not drink coffee. So, she's in the minority there. She didn't drink coffee. And so we didn't have any experience of coffee until she married my stepfather. And then he would make coffee in the morning. And for me, it became a thing where I didn't drink coffee, but I loved the smell of coffee in the morning. Like that felt very like your day is starting. This is, and because he always made himself coffee in the morning in his cafetera. And then when I left home, I didn't really think about how much it meant to me until my husband started drinking coffee, because I didn't drink coffee. My husband started drinking coffee, and in the morning it was like, oh, wow. Oh yeah, home. Right. Cool. And then now I drink coffee, but I can't have it all day. I can only have it till like 3. That's the latest. And then because anything like that, and I can't sleep.
But what's interesting also, coffee culture, like when I was a kid, coffee culture was not really a thing, meaning like the Starbucks, the like that coffee culture.
Yeah.
And but if you think about it, Latinos even give coffee to their kids, because they give Café Con Leche to children.
In a bottle.
Yeah. I mean, they're not giving you an espresso.
No.
But they're
but they're putting a little bit of cafe.
But they're putting a little bit of cafe where like it. I mean, now it might be a little different because of coffee culture, that like young adults drink coffee, like meaning kids like anywhere from like early teens to late teens. But before that, that was not a thing that was happening, and it was happening in our home.
People think I'm crazy when I tell them my grandfather used to put chocolate syrup and the coffee and the milk in a bottle, and I could not wait. Speaking of culture and home, can you guys tell us a little bit about where you're coming from right now? If you made a move during the quarantine, how quarantine this time right now has affected you?
Well, I stayed in New York for most of the quarantine. I started off, I took the quarantine very seriously, as all of you I've spoken with outside of this little forum we're having. I just thought it was a very serious health issue from the beginning. And I realized we were in New York City, and I realized if it's going to spread anywhere, it's going to spread in New York City because of the proximity of things. Everything is so close. We all share a common space. Like in New York, I walk out of my apartment and I'm immediately sharing a common space. Where I walk out of the front door of my parents' house in Miami and I'm outdoors in our own yard. And so I was there for about 12 weeks, and I took it very seriously. I did not leave the apartment. More so than anything because for anxiety purposes. I knew that it was probably relatively safe to put on a mask at some point and walk around, but my anxiety was so high that I felt like I was going to go outside and then come inside and be worrying and for no reason. So it kind of felt more like my mental health was better indoors. And then towards the end of the 12th week, I was like, I kind of need to see my family and get some fresh air. So I'm in Miami now, visiting my family. I'm going to be here for a little bit and enjoying their company while our work is kind of paused, as we were speaking before the record button was pressed. It's a great time in terms of we're always on the hustle in any career, specifically ours. Definitely, we're always on the hustle for the next job. And right now we have some time to like breathe and be with our families if we want. And we can, so why not? So I'm in Miami for a little bit, not long term, but at least I'm thinking maybe the summer, depending on what happens in New York. Depending on what happens in New York in terms of like if work picks up, or I mean, I don't think it will, but if some miracle happened and it did, then I'm in Miami.
Well, I moved to New York last summer in July. And right after when I got out of tour, and for me it was like, oh yes, I'm finally moving to New York, because I was like on tour for like 2 years, and I was like, as soon as it's over, I'm like moving. It's great, it's been great. And then this happened, so my first thought was to go to Miami with my family and my friends. I was like, I literally saw catastrophe, like zombies in the streets. I was like, this is like The Walking Dead. What is happening? Everything. People were like stocking up, and like the fear, and like it was like the thing of like the trains were gonna be shut down, and like this and that. And I was like, wait, what am I? Like my roommates were leaving the apartment. They were like going to their families, and then I remember being like, wait, what am I gonna do here alone? Like I'm not gonna be locked. Like for how long this is gonna go? Like I'm gonna go crazy because I'm a social person. I can be by myself for like maybe, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 days. After that, I'm like, I need social. I need to be with people.
Mhm.
And so I ran to Miami with my family. I stayed at my best friend's house, which was a blessing because she has 2 kids, which it happens for me to be perfect because I spend time with them. And part of one of the things that I was struggling with is because they're like my kids. Like I literally feel them like they're my son and my daughter. And I was not spending a lot of time with them because I was living away. I was like here in New York or traveling or going to places, whatever. And then now I was like, oh, this is like amazing because I'm spending quality time with them. I'm actually seeing them grow and learn, and I'm being part of their life. Like I'm not just like la tia, like la tia que vive in New York and she doesn't come ever. I'm like la tia que spent quarantine with them and like actually was part of like first Laya steps and like this, and I don't know. And then I have my family super close by, which we were very respectful of the quarantine. Like 2 months locked in the house. Thank God they have a big home. There are like a lot of people in there, so we would like spend time cooking and making cafecito, which is like funny because all Cuban families, all my friends, coffee, it's like a matter of reunion. You're like, I'm gonna make coffee. Who wants? And everybody from whatever part of the house, like, I want that. And then everybody's just like gathered together in the kitchen, waiting for the coffee to brew. And that's a moment of like connection. It's amazing. And those kind of things really made my quarantine a little better. So then I thought about because my apartment, my lease was due in August, and my roommates got a deal to like finish the lease earlier. And then I was like, what am I gonna do? Because I have my stuff in New York, and then I'm here in Miami. Like, what's my state of mind? And so I decided, I was like, you know what? I'm going to move to Miami until this whole thing,
calms down,
goes back to normal.
Yeah.
And it's been hard. I'm in New York right now. I came last Sunday to pack.
Okay.
And I don't know, it's just been so crazy. Everything just like walking, like sometimes I go to the groceries or something and it's just like I'm in New York. Like I love this city.
Mm-hmm.
And thinking of like moving back to Miami was never an option for me. And then now I'm like packing my stuff to drive back to Miami. It's just crazy. It's a lot of things happening. But I feel it's gonna be good. Like that's a decision. Now the only way I feel I could be like in peace and like comfortable is to have my family around, like if anything, because we don't have a job, so like if anything happened I still have my family that can take care of me and like give me a couch if I need it,
Of course.
So I don't know, it's just like a lot. I'm like going through a lot. Like I'm seeing the life, like the Black Lives Matter behind you, and I'm like I'm trying to be like active and doing and this, but I haven't been in no protests. It's just because my state of mind right now, I'm like, I'm gonna support from the safety of my home. It's just like I feel like it's a lot to process for me right now. I'm like going through like so many things.
Well, you can only do what you can do. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the only wrong answer is silence, or the only wrong answer is like, coming out against it or whatever. Like you have to do what you can do. And sometimes like, last week, there were a number of days that I couldn't go out. I have had the opportunity to go out protesting, and it has done, first of all, wonders because I feel like I'm supporting people, and sitting still felt so horrible. But I had to learn in sitting still that there are things that I can do from my house, right? Absolutely. So like there are a number of lists and stuff that have lawyers on them, and so I've been calling them because there was a list that was like pro bono work, lawyers that were willing to do pro bono work for protesters. And as it turns out, there were a couple on there that were not willing to do pro bono work. So I've been sitting at home and calling one by one and being like, I need to double check that this is actually something you're doing. And then if there's a couple of lists that are just like lawyers you can call. And I've been calling those guys and being like, are you willing to do pro bono work for protesters? And I found a couple that were like, you know what? I didn't even think of that. Yes, I would be willing. So I could add them to the pro bono list and be like, hey, this is, and that is something that I could do from home. I could do it, and still feel like I was putting that information out. And that is the thing. I think that's, if for your mental health, I have a friend who has asthma. and she, you know, so she's what's it called, at high risk of getting COVID-19 if she's because of her asthma. And so she was just feeling horrible and beating herself up because she wasn't going to protest and stuff. And I'm like, Mama, if you went to the protest, you would just be there being afraid of catching COVID. So like from home, repost, like amplify the voices of people of color, repost those things, you know, make phone calls, donate where you can. Cause I know we can't all donate all the time. You know what I mean? Like we're a bunch of artists. We don't make any money. Although all of us are making more money than we would usually make on unemployment.
Absolutely.
Or on unemployment.
Like I haven't gotten unemployment yet. I'm like,
that kills me, you know. So it's, you know, you just have to find ways to be an ally from home, you know, and there are ways to do that. You can do that.
And there are some really important things happening where I have had more conversations in the past week and a half with people about Black Lives Matter and about how we can instill change and instill like a brighter future for Black lives in a way that I don't think I've ever had in my life, honestly. I mean, such deliberate conversations, right? And conversations of like holding ourselves accountable and how we can be different and how we can show up different in the world to support Black lives. And I mean, in having those conversations and listening to each other, to, you know, Black lives who are actually sharing with us and hearing them, I think that even there is already a huge thing that's being, that is a huge shift in the conversations we've been having. And somebody put it's really interesting. I read this the other day. I thought it was brilliant because so many people are like, riots are so pointless and so, you know, horrible. And although I am a person who does not necessarily believe in violence personally, this statement said riots are so pointless that the whole world is talking about it. And
that was good.
It's I mean, it's true. I mean, you know, like, and if we think about it in our history, not just with these kind of protests, in any protest, it sometimes becomes violent.
Right. And riots get things done.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I like I said, I personally, as a human, I am not someone who believes in violence in my own life. And I don't like to champion it. But I also understand that sometimes it's necessary.
Yeah,
and
Alyssa
that
and
I don't understand what that feels like, and that I can't possibly understand what
like.
I would do in that instance because it's not my
no,
experience.
it's definitely like if you look at the history, it's like my mom will always say, "Uno se pone verde una vez." It's like you get crazy one time, but you go off.
Yeah,
and that's when you have to speak. You're like, ah! That time everybody's gonna listen to you. Like one time, you don't do anything, being like little by little, just being like a little cosito, and then a little like, and then talking about this and this and this and that. And I was thinking the other day, because COVID have been hitting us so hard, and I was like, damn, like I was feeling like it was a lot of things happening at the same time, and I was like, now that everything is so crazy, and like the world is having a hard time. And then this, I mean, I do want everything to happen. And I was wondering, I was like, is it gonna have the amount of attention that it needs, the matter? Because it is a big matter and it needs all the attention. And I was like, maybe with COVID kind of like fades out in a way. And I was struggling with that. So I was like, I don't know, it's like the historical time is the perfect time for starting this. And then now that you mentioned that, I'm like, you know what? It's actually the perfect time. Because it's the first time that the whole world is connected.
Is listening.
And is listening in one thing that is, it happens to be COVID this time, but everybody's on their phone all the time. Everybody's connected to Zoom. I'm getting chills right now. It's like, it's the perfect time for people to be like, now you have to listen.
Yeah.
Now you have to act. Now you have to do, because everybody's like this. When we go back to life and everything gets like, fade out because everybody's like doing their own thing, maybe it's not that important if you do it right now. And I'm like, of course, like this is the perfect time to like be speaking loud.
I was
Mhm.
describing this in a conversation the other day, like because I am also trying to have conversations when someone is not like-minded with me, and I've had a couple. I'm not trying to be like, unfriend, you're not my friend. I'm trying to show them what I think
Mm-hmm.
and try to see if they'll see it my way.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're trying to instill change. We're not trying to like push out all the people. We're
Mhm.
trying to make it so that there's a shift.
Yeah.
And I said to someone, what's happening right now is like a couple on a Saturday night who's out, and they've been fighting. They have had this problem like a year, and they've been ignoring it. And they have a fight on Saturday night, and they're like, you and this, and they say all the like nasty things, whatever. And then like, and maybe they don't even talk to each other on Sunday or Monday. They're in a fight. And then they sit down, and then they're like, let's talk about this. And I love you. And what can I do? And this is what bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like right now we're in that like fight stage, that like Saturday night fight stage where you're finally getting things off your chest.
Mhm.
But it does settle.
Yeah.
And you do eventually then start talking about how can this be better?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You pick
I
up the
think that's where we
pieces.
are. I don't know. I mean, I'm playing it by ear, right? We're all figuring it out together.
Yeah.
But it's how it
And
seems to me.
well, and that is so good that you're able to have those conversations in a
Ah.
calm way. You know, I was telling Alyssa, I was talking to my mom about, you know, she's very against the riots. I think she thinks about all the property damage that she had during Maria, when Maria came through Puerto Rico and destroyed her house. And she thinks about, you know, the struggle of getting her house back to what it had to be and getting the money to fix everything. And like, she thinks about the person who owns those buildings. And it was like, Mom, the thing is, you were able to rebuild that building. You cannot bring back a life, you know, that life is gone forever. So, and that building will not bleed, and that building will not cry, but it, you know, and I'm not like, I'm not going out and rioting. That is not, but I'm also not to that point where these
Right.
people are, you know, 400 plus years of this bullshit. And you're going to start throwing rocks and lighting shit on fire. That is where you've gotten to, because like you said, that relationship where something's been going on, you build that pressure, you build that pressure, you build that pressure and build that pressure, and something's going to snap.
And then it seems unreasonable sometimes. And sometimes the other person is like, you sound crazy. I don't know what you're talking about, because it's never really been talked about properly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So in the moment, in the couple, the person comes across as like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because they've both been ignoring the elephant in the room.
And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes
You know what I mean?
sometimes, especially this is a great analogy. Like, thank you for saying it in this way, because there are even times that sometimes both parties want the same thing and don't realize that they're trying to communicate the same thing or something similar, the same needs, the same desires. That's something, you know, Ryan and I have spoken about recently, you know, finding our own places in this, just like all of us saying, you know, how can we make a difference? You know, I've been pretty, Lily and I spoke about this as well, but I come from a family of nurses and servicemen, military and NYPD. And it's also been hard for me because my vision, of course, there are good cops, there are bad cops. You know what I mean? There are good doctors and nurses, there are bad doctors and nurses. And the institution is the real problem. So even I've had my own personal struggle with, you know, knowing so many people who are from the hood, from the barrio, who were like, okay, I can either go down this path or go down that path. If I go down this path, maybe I get into gang life. Maybe I die. Maybe I get killed. Or I can become a cop. Or I can go into the military and serve my community. And that's the goal. But then when they get into the institution, they realize there's so much more they have to fight through, you know? So I've now gone to a couple of protests, and I'm trying really to like document the movements, document the peaceful protests, how people are communicating with each other. And I'm really hoping that through all this, I mean, it's LA, right? Los Angeles just defunded their police department.
Minneapolis did too.
Minneapolis as well. I'm hoping that the institution changes. I mean, even in our industry right now, Broadway, the institution of Broadway, everything is being exposed, and it all stems from communication.
And it's like Claudia said, it's if we're talking about time, is it the time to do it? Right now, everyone is listening. It's, all of the noise of the job, all of the noise of the appointments we have to get to, all the noise of the bullshit we need to do is muted right now because of COVID. And so everyone is listening, whether they want to or not. Like everyone is seeing whether they want to or not. Yeah. Because it's there. And you have to work.
We're having right now, we were talking about how you can, whether, you were saying, I haven't been to a protest, or I have been to a protest. This conversation we're having right now that's going to be heard by people is a conversation we weren't having 2 or 3 weeks ago. We wouldn't probably have spoken of this. It wasn't being spoken of in the world. We were consumed with COVID. So, rightfully so, because it was and is a scary moment. But here we are speaking of this and sharing our viewpoints and how we want things to look, and that we want things to be better. That we want things to look, to be. I don't think, and the truth is, I'm sure there are people out in the world that want to harm people. That's me being naive. I was about to say, I don't think anyone wants to hurt another human, but that's just my naive, idealistic way of thinking. We want. It's what I want. But most of the people that I know, how about this? Most of the people that I keep in my life, whether they have my viewpoint or not on Black Lives Matter, I know deep down inside they don't want to hurt anyone. Yeah. And if I can get to that part of them, I can get them to see what I see.
Of course, yeah.
I think I can get them to see what I see. I hope I can get them to see what I see.
Yeah.
Hi. Yeah. Okay. Oh my gosh. I love having this conversation. Okay.
Yes.
And I'll leave it with this though. The reason I brought up the reason it came to me, the relationship conversation, is because everyone can relate to that. Everyone can relate to the big blow up fight with their partner, and then the reconciliation and the actual sitting down and be like, okay, these are the rules now. I'm going to take a shower at this time because I know it bothers you. I'm giving a very, silly example just to make a point.
Yeah. But it makes sense.
Yeah. There are clearly way bigger things, but I didn't want to get too deep. But it's that idea of I'm not going to do this anymore because I know it offends you. And I don't want to trivialize what's going on, because taking a shower is not a very important thing. Yeah. But it's that idea of this thing really bothers you and I'm going to respect you. It's about respect. Yeah.
Two things. First of all, taking a shower is very important. COVID-19.
Yeah.
Second thing, how are you guys using the arts during this time, during quarantine, to buoy yourselves even during this time of quarantine and Black Lives Matter? How are you using the arts? Claudia, I know that you've got a little show that you've been doing.
The host of Leave It to Mulet.
Hey.
Yeah.
I was a guest on it.
I started this. The thing is, I was so all over the place the first 2-3 weeks. And then one day, I had a lot of friends that were doing live conversations. And then I was like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to start doing that. If I'm FaceTiming my friends and having amazing conversations, why can't I just do it live? And then, people can just actually be and participate, Yeah. And then I was like, oh, I'm just going to do that. But then from there, it just turned out a whole show situation. Someone was because Mauricio, when we did the tour, he used to say all the time, oh, leave it to Mulet. Every time I would say something, or I would make a point, or I would know someone connections, whatever. It would be leave it to Mulet. And then I was as a funny thing, I was you know what, I'm just going to name it Leave It to Mulet. And then from there, it just happened to be people were starting to reach out, being oh my God, we really love this. And then I started to from just a random conversation, I started pointing on doing like an interview kind of thing. And then I found myself, it really saved my quarantine. I did it straight for a whole week, like Monday through Friday, for like 3-4 weeks or something like that. And it was exhausting, but it kept my mind so busy because I would make a flyer. I would contact people. I would be like reaching out, send an email, being like, hey, can you do this thing? Da, da, da. What's your favorite song? What's your da, 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 da? And then in scheduling, I would be like, okay, I'm going to put this person on Monday, then this person on Tuesday. And then I can put like the kids on Thursdays, and then da, da, da. Then I had to slow down and do it 3 times a week because it's a lot.
Yeah.
And then from there, I think it was Eddie, my friend, that was saying, oh, you should make a podcast out of it. Because the conversations are so good. You just like edit the bullshit and then just keep like the most important thing. And then you make a podcast out of it. And then you can have a YouTube channel. I was like, oh my God, this is growing so much. And then I started doing it. And I have the show now on Spotify that people can listen to it. And it's crazy. I'm like, what? But because I was coming to New York, I was doing it like nonstop for the last couple of weeks. And I knew this week was like, my level of stress was like over the top. I was like having anxiety about coming. Like it was just so, and I was like, you know what, next week I'm going to stop. I'm going to give a resist. And it happened to be this week, which I was like, you know, it's perfect for me to like give it a stop. I'm not going to post anything. Like, I don't want the attention to be like fade out with like what is happening. I'm like, I want to focus on like what is happening. If I need to post anything, it's about that. And like, you know, my stories and stuff. So I give it a pause. And I told people, I was like, I'm going to be out of the show for like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. And then I can come back. And then I'm like thinking of like a new season that, you know, like another people, because now I want to expand it because I started with like just people from the showbiz. But I want to expand it now, and I want to have like psychologists, like sociologists, like, I don't know, nutritionists. I want to have a performer, but then I want to have a singer, and then I want to have a doctor that talks about his experience. Like, I want to do it more of like an interaction kind of thing and inspirational also. So I'm like kind of like rewriting. And now with this that has been happening, I'm like, there's so much I can like take out of like from there. So it's just like, I've been busy. I've been like, just with that, I'm like, I'm not getting paid. I'm not making any money out of it. It's consuming my time, but it's been so helpful for me to take off the tension of whatever is happening in my life right now. So yeah, it's been good. It's been really good.
Yes. Well, y'all heard it. When her show takes over the world.
Okay.
You heard her say it. Okay.
It's amazing. Where can people watch it, Claudia?
Well, I'm posting. So I've got a lot of interviews. So what I'm doing is, because I was doing the live like every day, I've been doing like, I'm posting in YouTube the ones from the beginning, like in the same order, but like once a week. So I have like a couple of episodes that I've been recording. I keep like track of it, and then I post it on Tuesdays. Is the day that I post it on Spotify. You can listen to it in Spotify, Apple Music. I mean, there's so many platforms, like 7 of them have been approved.
Oh, we know.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, this is going out of hands. I'm like, what? And then on YouTube is like, if you go like Live It to Mulet, it's there. Right now I just have like 3 or 4 posted because it was supposed to like keep like every week, but this week I didn't post any. And then probably and tomorrow was supposed to be the next one, and I'm not gonna post any anyway. So that's for now. And then on my Instagram I usually leave it for a little bit and then I take it off because I'm gonna post it in the future. So that's what I've been doing, trying to like recycle so people can remember because it happened live, and then they can go back to it, revisit it, and be like, oh my God, look, when they talk about this thing.
Yeah.
What about you, Henry? You've been using your beautiful voice.
Oh my God. Well, first off, there's been a lot of moments where luckily someone else has been inspiring for me to create art, in terms of like, we all created our video together. We're working on a benefit right now that Alyssa is editing, and just some theaters have reached out in terms of creating content for their websites so that they have something to share with the world. And then also, believe it or not, I had a ridiculous amount of self-tapes. Alyssa and I have the same agent. And because Craig is bi-coastal, I was getting all these general self-tapes for TV and film casting agencies in. The reason I bring that up is not because nothing has come of them, and I don't know if anything will, but I found myself at first. I was like, a self-tape, like the first week or two, a self-tape during all this, it all felt so trivial and so not important, and I have my health and that's all that matters. And then what I found within, like, I mean, as we all know, self-tapes can be very hard in terms of like self-judgment, and they're very time consuming, and they're very emotionally draining for some of us who or specifically for me, I can't speak for everyone, but I'm a perfectionist and I wanted to look a certain way and sound a certain way and all that stuff. But what I found is it's kind of like what Mulet is saying. It really wasn't about auditioning for anything. It was about creating and letting that go. And then I found myself becoming very invested in finding material, because some of the generals were like your own material, right? Like you finding your own material to submit. And then I found myself, because of making self-tapes, of reconnecting with what's interesting is I didn't want to be, and no shame in the people that did this in the beginning, but I didn't feel in the beginning like I was like, listen to me sing, listen to me sing. It felt self-serving for me. And I understand that singing helped people. Hearing other people sing helped a lot of people. So I actually think that the people that felt the move to do that sounds amazing to me. But in the beginning, it felt self-serving, and it felt like, here, I don't want you. It felt like taking advantage of a moment, as opposed to like actually trying to heal people. So I didn't do that in the beginning. But what I did find myself doing was like creating stuff for myself at home, kind of like when you're a little kid. And like, I mean, when I was a kid, like I had like a tape recorder, and I would like decide I wanted to sing a song, and I was just singing along with like the cassette tape, and then recording it and listening to myself and seeing what it sounded like, and seeing what I like, like things that kids do when they're first being creative. And I found that I was discovering that, and that what made me feel good in those moments was like, well, I don't have to share this, but the idea of creating feels fantastic. And there was plenty that I shared, because of either situations that led, like we said, us creating stuff that people prompted me to create. So it's not like I didn't share anything, but there were also moments that kept me sane within all of this. That creativity kept me sane. That singing kept me sane, even if it was in my room singing to myself at 3 a.m. listening to a video. Not full out at 3 a.m., but so it was, what I have found. And then also, because as you guys know, I've always struggled with anxiety, but post my losing my father, I struggle with anxiety a little more, and around performing a lot too, as you all know, because you were with me. And I've been wanting to come back to a place where singing is joyous for me. It was so joyous as a child, and so joyous for many years. And then it started to become a source of anxiety. And then I started to realize, how do I do that? How do I do that without judging myself, without feeling like I have to sound a certain way? And I had an epiphany. I want to join a choir at some point, because a choir isn't about you. A choir is about the group.
Yes.
And so nobody's listening to how you sound. Nobody's listening to, your dynamic or your intonation. I mean, you're worried about it because you want to sound good within the group, but it's a different thing. And I feel like it's something that I'm excited about when we, get back into the real world, of having a place where I sing, that I'm not making money, that it's not my livelihood, that nobody cares if I sound good or bad, that it doesn't matter if I sound good or bad. So often we're worried about, we always have to show our best, we have to put our best foot forward, because we're always being watched. especially nowadays with these things,
Mhm.
you know, we're always being watched, and you better always be good, or they'll hire the next person.
Mhm.
Or that's our mentality. I don't know that it's true, but that's how
But
we
that's how we
feel.
feel, which
That's how we
suggests
feel.
that maybe that's what it is.
Yeah. And so I've within this, I guess I've found the joy of why, or am rediscovering the joy of why I do this, why I love to sing, why I love to be creative, which has helped me within this moment. So that's been
so
my
good.
creative, and you know, and we'll see. And I've tried to write because I write music, but I've been kind of stuck, and I've kind of been trying to not judge myself.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't judge
It's
yourself.
very easy, you know, because people are like, now's the time, you have all this time, you should be creative, you should create things and write, and I've dabbled with some writing, but it's not coming organic, and I don't, it's okay.
Yeah. And
Well,
maybe
and
that you're
It's totally fine.
And hopefully, and maybe at some point it will. And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, great.
Yeah, and you're not alone in that. So, I mean, so many other guests that we've had have spoken the same thing, have been feeling the same thing. And some people are in overdrive with creating, and some people want to take a seat back, you know. And and there's no right or wrong answer with that. But speaking about joy and creativity,
go ahead, transition.
We had the pleasure of doing In the Heights with both of you, and I mean, there's nothing else that comes to mind that brings more joy and creativity than that show and the family members that we get to be introduced to. Can each of you take a moment to maybe talk about your journey, how the show affected you, changed you? Yeah, and maybe share a couple words with people who haven't done the show yet or have, and something that they can take away, you know, or remember during this time.
Yeah.
Henry, Claudia?
Claudia, you want to go, or
start if you want, because you're
oh, well,
I mean,
I've spoken to you guys about this a little bit before in the first
iteration
of this, but I've had a long history within the Heights. For those who are tuning in for the first time, I did the very first reading of In the Heights in New York, when Lynn was right out of Wesleyan University. And I got to do about 3.5 years of developmental work on the piece, whether it was readings, or we used to do these things that we called work sheds, where we didn't invite anyone to the presentation. We were just working on the material. We spent like a couple weeks just hashing out stuff. And it was a very big part of my life. And unfortunately, as happens with a lot of shows in development, my role got written out of the piece. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, Nina in the show used to have a brother named Lincoln, named after the town cars. And it was a very different story, very different music. And it's they started fine-tuning the piece. And when you fine-tune the piece, sometimes
things get cut.
Some stories, things get cut. That happens in everything.
Absolutely.
Now, at the time, it was, and I say that happens in everything. I wasn't talking to 24-year-old Henry or 25-year-old Henry, because I made it mean a lot of things about me and my career. And my career for a minute slowed down because I made it mean like, well, I must suck if this is happening. I've learned in life that that's not the situation, that's just what happens with development and creativity, and you're like, oh, this piece of the puzzle fits here and this one fits here, and then eventually, oh, this one isn't even in the puzzle. So
I wish that everybody could have seen it, all four of us at the same time, because all three ladies are like, that's right. We just shook our heads like, nope, it has nothing to do with us, all three of us.
and I know that now, but that's something you learn, right? That's something that people can tell you all they want.
Yeah.
It's a life experience, I think, that you have to have.
To feel it yourself.
But I feel very grateful because in my way, I had I put my stamp on creating the piece, on the piece going where it did. And that's the part that I could own, that I was very happy with that. I had a part in this becoming what it was.
Yeah.
Well, and the character, correct me if I'm wrong, but the character of Lincoln is coming back to the movie. Is that true?
I haven't heard that.
Okay.
But that doesn't
Maybe
mean that
I
it's
heard
not
something
true.
wrong.
I haven't heard that, but that doesn't mean it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that the piece has been changed a lot. I've been working on the film in terms of singing on the singing tracks.
Mm-hmm.
So that has been fantastic, but within that we're just singing, right? So I don't really know storylines.
Yeah.
New storylines or anything like that, but it's been really great to go back into the studio and revisit all these things that I guess that I started almost 20 years ago.
Wow.
I mean, maybe a little less than that, but almost. And it's just interesting. It's been a big part of my life. I got to champion it throughout. I can, even when I didn't become a part of it, I kept going with it. I would go to like all the openings. I was there on opening night. I was there on Tony night. I got to celebrate and champion this because I knew from the beginning that it was going to be this amazing piece. From the very first song I heard, I was like, this is special and different and unique.
Yeah.
And so but then for a long time I was kind of like in an in-between place for the piece because I was too young to play any of the characters that I was right for. And so I wasn't a part of the piece for a while. And then when I started to get to a certain age, I started to play the piragua guy. And it started to, and then recently started to understudy Kevin. And it just opened up this place for me to revisit the show and relearn the show, and in terms of not learn it in terms of performing, but in what I'm learning from the piece now. And it's been, and then we had such a beautiful run of it together. And it was such a big part of my life because I lost my dad pretty violently during that time. And so it was kind of a foundation for me, the piece and the people in it, getting me through this really hard moment. So In the Heights has been kind of, integral to my growth. I'm saying that for the first time, but in many ways, it's been integral to my growth in a plethora of ways. And I always say this, even, I had been the beginning of my stint in New York. I was very fortunate and I started working right away. Mine went a little differently. Most people go, I'm working towards it, and then it happens, and then it becomes consistent. I got it very quickly in the beginning and was working, and then when In the Heights happened, it kind of stopped for a minute, for a while. And so I had a different experience than most people have with that. But what I find interesting is I think it really humbled me. And I think that's important as a human being, because that person that gets everything from the beginning and never has a taste of like, well, sometimes things don't go the way you want them to. Those people become really arrogant and really
privileged.
Right, privileged, and you can't have a conversation with them. And so I feel like it brought me back down to the ground and allowed me to stay humble. At the time, that's not what I wanted to hear. But I think in the end, I think it was the best thing for me. More than anything, I've created amazing relationships, and I've gotten to do the show many times, and I'm working on the film like full circle again with the team, so it's been really just a blessing in every way for my life. And I know it's a show that speaks of home, and right now that's something we all need, I think.
Yeah. Claudia, so we had, as listeners know, we had a show that did 6 months in 3 different theaters. And then a year later, the show got picked up by a fourth theater, and some of our cast members were not able to join us. But that is when we got the beautiful, the talented, the lovely Miss Claudia. How was that? What was that experience for you? What did it mean to you? What was In the Heights when it came into your life this way?
In the Heights, it's one of those shows that is a blessing to be a part of. It changed you in every single way. I think it's just I did so this is how far it goes for me with In the Heights. I did Rent in Cuba, and while I was doing Rent in Cuba, they were talking about maybe bringing In the Heights to Cuba. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. I never heard of the show, but I was like, oh my God, like whatever. So I kind of like saw videos of it. I never gotten to see the show per se at this point. But when I was doing On Your Feet on tour, Claudia and I did a road trip. We drove like 3 hours. And I remember telling her, I was like, no, I've never seen In the Heights. She was like, you've never in your life seen In the Heights? And I was like, no, oh my God. So she played the soundtrack and she explained every single scene. She was like, so before this happened, so this is this people, blah, 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 and then she would put this on. And then she would explain the scene after. And she literally put so many images in my face, in my mind, that I was like, I could see it. I was driving and I sobbed. I was like all over the place. And one of the things that touched me the most was Abuela Claudia's story. Just because that was the first time I was like, wait, Abuela Claudia? I mean, my name. Well, I was like, oh, that's so nice. And the fact that Abuela Claudia is from Cuba, and she's from La Víbora, which I was born in La Víbora, in San Miguel entre Agustín y Revolución. And when she talks about the song that she talks about, the birds and the park and da-da-da-da, I used to have a park like right across the street from my house that had like everything the song describes. Like, just like brought so many memories to me that when I was a kid in Cuba, which I moved. Moving is usually very stressful, but moving, like migration in general, like immigration, whatever, it's very hard sometimes. I mean, you do it because it's our natural thing to like open up and look for different things in your life, but it is a very big hit as a person. You grow a lot because you learn from another culture, another language, you meet new people. It's like your life just changed so much. And then listen to that in a song through the words of Abuela Claudia and what she means in the show. And I was like, I remember being like sobbing. So that was my first approach to In the Heights. Then I got the chance to kind of like study it a little bit because I auditioned for the movie. Didn't went too far, but I still learned the material. I was like, I don't care. I want to audition just to like have the material, learn the songs, because I know it's a show that it's like everywhere. Like a lot of theaters do it all the time, and I just want to get familiar with how the show is because I've never got the chance to do it. And then I'm living in New York, and I get the call to audition for In the Heights in Portland. And I remember it was Carmine, the first person was like, hey, this is the show. And I was like, oh my God. Yes, I would love to do it. And then Henry, I remember Henry also told me he was part of the show. And I was like, oh my God, that's the production you guys did. And like, you've been doing it. And I got so excited. I was like, oh my God, I need to book this job. Because I mean, this is the first time. If there's a moment I have a show, like right after On Your Feet, I struggle a little bit because I was like, what show am I going to do right? Like,
because I was with Claudia. I went on tour for 5 weeks. I went into the tour for 5 weeks of On Your Feet because they needed someone because someone was out of the show. And I was with Claudia when I got the call that I booked on our production of In the Heights.
Yeah.
I sent a tape from the tour. So she had heard of this a year before already. You know what I mean?
It's so crazy. And also like Henry and I have a friend in common. Then we got to like experience each other a little bit more while we were on tour. And then when I booked In the Heights with Henry, with Carmine, that we did the show together and we kind of like started to get closer. It was just like, it's not what those things that I was like, I don't know what, because I was getting auditions and I was like, and sorry for the people that have done Hello Dolly, but there's so many shows for me that I was like, what am I going to do in Hello Dolly? First of all, I have a big accent. say it like look at me. I'm like, I don't fit in any, every time I get a call for Hello Dolly, I'm like, you need to stop. This is not for me. My agents don't get it. So anyway, it was like when I first got the call for In the Heights, I was like, I need to be in this show. This is the show that I need to book. So when I got the call that I booked the show and I was going to Portland, also Portland, I mean, it's my favorite city in this entire country. And with these people, and then it's like that, In the Heights have that power of like bringing people together. Doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how your personality, anything. Just the show and the connections you create around what the show is selling and the music, and like the creative team gets so connected with the performers. And like, it's just like create this bubble of like kindness and love. And I feel like it's something that the show has. It's of course the people that is in the show, but it's one of those shows that have that magic. It builds that magic from the beginning, because every person I talk that they have been in the Heights, they're like, oh my God, the show is just like changed your life completely. Your perspective of how you see things is just,
and it's an ever expanding bubble too. That is the other thing that I love, because sometimes you get into a cast and your cast is so tight knit that like it's just the cast, where I feel like this show goes, look how much we love each other, and it goes, and the crew and the theater and the neighborhood around it and everybody who comes to see, like it starts to create this ever expanding bubble of love.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And there's so many people that also like you. It's a show you get to do usually more than once. So it's like a lot of casts just get, like connected, because you get to do the show with these people, and then you get to do it with other people. And then it's just like, it keeps growing. Like when you're like, oh, you're in the Heights family. You're like, yes, because you got to do the show. It doesn't matter if I did it in Massachusetts and you did it in where. It's just like, we did it. It's perfect. We're part of the family. We know. Yeah. It's just great.
We need to start coming up with a call or something, or a symbol.
Yeah.
I know.
Like a
In the Heights assemble. All right, we have been talking for a very long time, so I'm going to start trying to wrap us up here.
Yeah.
This has been so amazing. Don't get me wrong. Before we go, do you guys have any theaters or any projects, or any anything that you want to promote here, ask people to donate, ask people to check out? Is there any theater near you in Florida, in New York, wherever, any kind of what's it called, organization? Thank you. I couldn't think of the word. I was like, association. That's not it. Organization that you feel really passionate about right now that you would like to ask people to donate to?
Well, I'd like to, support local theater in Florida. It's where I started. It's where I saw my first show. So anything in South Florida that you can donate to, there's a bunch of theaters. The theater that I saw my first show at is Actors Playhouse, and they have I've done 14 shows there. Yes. So it's in Coral Gables, Florida, which is a section of Miami. So if you go find Actors Playhouse and can give them a little love, whether it's support or money, or there's a bunch of theaters down here. Like there's so much theater in South Florida. And I know theater needs love everywhere. But I think if we each start with it within our sub communities, we can build it up everywhere. And of course, any theater you can give to I think it's important right now to create this, to keep live theater alive. Yeah. So yeah.
Especially small theaters. I feel like part of our salvation now is going to be regional theaters. Yeah. In general, because Broadway probably is going to be shut down for a little bit, for a minute, second. So whatever theater you have around, that they do like good productions, and you want to keep like seeing them working and like hiring people, especially now that we don't have jobs and we need, productions to happen. That would be amazing. Anything like, that you can donate. Also subscribe to my channel, my YouTube channel.
Yes. We'll add a link We'll add a link in the
That
video.
will help a lot.
Yes, yes.
Well,
we'll
and
add a
all the
link at the
theaters that
bottom
we've
of the
worked
release.
at together, I'm sure, give all those theaters love.
Yeah.
Yeah, Milwaukee rep, Cincinnati Playhouse in the Park, Seattle rep, and the wonderful, lovely, talented Portland Center Stage
Yes.
that brought all of us together. Yes, and I've said this before, but if you've got $20 extra, take $5, donate it to Actors Playhouse in Florida. Take $5, donate it to Actors
Rep.
Fund.
Yeah, it doesn't have to
$5.
be.
No, it doesn't have to be. $5.
It's
Throw it to Black Lives Matter. That those $5, they say so much. So if you got them and you feel like you're feeling moved to do it, I mean, splitting that $20 up and sending 5 to 4 different places is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, mi gente. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh my God,
Of
thank you so much.
course.
We love you both so much, and thank all of you for tuning in to Café Con Leche, and we hope that you always have your café exactly the way you like it. Bye.
See you soon.